"Worthless trash! Your rusty old boat, it's polluting the bay," the man in the white suit shouted, pointing at the weathered wooden boat. The old veteran stood frozen, his eyes fixed on his boat, his entire life being destroyed by the luxury yacht. But then, something no one expected happened. Overnight. Do you feel the injustice? Do you believe in justice? If you're outraged, type 111 in the comments. Stand up and speak out. John Miller, a 72-year-old veteran living alone on his small weathered fishing boat. In Clearwater Bay, the boat Liberty. More than just wood and nails, it was his home for 15 years. Since his wife passed away, with hands wrinkled by time. Yet strong from 30 years of military service, John only sought peace. Fishing to survive, selling his catch to local restaurants. But it wasn't about the money. It was the quiet, the solitude, the memories. The only company he had left were the waves and the wind that Wednesday morning began like any other. The sun painted golden streaks across the calm waters as John prepared his fishing gear. His routine was interrupted when he noticed a group of tourists frantically gathered around their broken-down rental car on the shore. Without hesitation, John steered Liberty toward the dock. "Need some help there?" he called out, securing his boat and approaching the stranded group. "The engine won't start," a young woman explained, frustration evident in her voice. "We've called for assistance, but they said it'll be at least 2 hours." John nodded, rolling up his sleeves. "Let me take a look. Spent some time as a mechanic in the service." For 45 minutes, John worked diligently under the hood, his fishing plans forgotten. When the engine finally roared to life, the tourists erupted in cheers. "Sir, we can't thank you enough," the woman said, offering him money. "Please take this for your time." John waved it away with a gentle smile. Helping others is just what I do. No thanks needed as evening approached. A gleaming 60-foot yacht docked near Liberty. Music blared as elegantly dressed people mingled on its deck. The yacht's owner, a middle-aged man in an immaculate white suit, spotted John's modest boat and scowled. "Hey, old man," he shouted across the water. "That floating piece of junk is an eyesore. Move it away from my yacht immediately." John stood up slowly. "Sir, I've been docked here for years." I don't care about your permits," the man interrupted, his face wreathing. "That garbage doesn't belong near civilized people." When John didn't immediately comply, the yacht owner signaled to his crew. 2 men attached a tow rope to Liberty and suddenly accelerated their speedboat, violently. Yanking the old vessel, the wooden structure cracked loudly as water began pouring in. "No," John cried out, watching helplessly as his home began sinking. The yacht owner laughed coldly. "Consider it a favor to the bay. That trash needed to be removed." As darkness fell, John stood alone on the dock, watching Liberty, his home, and last connection to his past, disappear beneath the waves. The following morning arrived with cruel brightness. John had spent the night on a bench, his weathered face marked by sleeplessness and grief. At first light, he waded into the shallow water, where Liberty had sunk, attempting to salvage whatever remained of his possessions. His callous hands trembled as he retrieved a waterlogged photo album pictures of his late wife and their life together, now ruined by seawater. A military medal, tarnished but intact, was clutched tightly in his palm. Everything else, clothes, fishing equipment, medication, was lost. "Still cleaning up your garbage, I see," came a mocking voice. John looked up to find the yacht owner standing on the dock, dressed in designer sportswear, an expensive watch glinting in the morning sun. "That wreckage is a hazard," the man continued, gesturing dismissively. "You should thank me for destroying that floating death trap. I probably saved your life, old man." Several bystanders had gathered, watching the confrontation unfold. a few dock workers, the harbor master, even tourists with their phones raised, all witnessing but none intervening. That boat, John said quietly, his voice barely audible, was my home. We'll find a proper home then, the man laughed. This is an exclusive marina, not a shelter for homeless veterans. We pay premium fees to keep this place prestigious. One of the dock workers shifted uncomfortably but remained silent. The harbor master looked away, pretending to check something on his clipboard. Someone should remove this trash, the yacht owner continued, now addressing the onlookers. It's bringing down property values just standing there. All pathetic. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd. No one challenged him. John stood in knee-deep water, dignity intact, despite his soaked clothes and devastated expression. He didn't argue or plead. 30 years of military discipline had taught him to endure without complaint. But the slight tremor in his shoulders revealed the weight of this injustice. I fought for this country, he whispered more to himself than anyone else for 30 years. Well, the country's moved on, the yacht owner sneered. And so should you, preferably away from my view. As John continued gathering the fragments of his life, the crowd gradually dispersed, some with downcast eyes, others with indifferent shrugs. The harbor master approached briefly, mumbling about regulations and salvage deadlines, before hurrying away. By midday, John sat alone on the dock, surrounded by the meager pile of recovered items, a broken compass, the photo album, his service medal, and a few pieces of driftwood that had once been Liberty's hull. His weathered hands, which had once saved lives in combat, now seemed powerless against this civilian cruelty. The yacht owner's laughter echoed from his vessel, where a party had already begun, champagne flowing freely, as music drowned out any lingering discomfort about the morning's confrontation. How can a veteran who sacrificed his entire life for his country be treated this way? If you feel this injustice, to type unfair to speak up for justice, as the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly. John continued his solitary salvage effort. His movements were methodical, but increasingly strained, decades old. Combat injuries protesting against the prolonged physical exertion. "Excuse me, sir," a crisp voice called from behind. "Are you John Miller?" John turned to find a young man in a sharp military uniform approaching. The officer's posture was impeccable, his insignia indicating the rank of captain. "Yes, I'm John," he replied cautiously. The captain studied John's face intently. "Were you with the 45th Battalion during Operation Desert Shield?" John's eyebrows raised slightly. "I was served as Command Sergeant Major without warning." The young officer's professional demeanor cracked. He stepped forward and extended his hand with profound reverence. "Sir, I'm Captain Michael Reynolds. My father was Lieutenant James." Reynolds, John's weathered face transformed with recognition, little Jimmy's boy. "My God, my father told me about you every single day until he passed," Captain Reynolds said, his voice thick with emotion. "You pulled him from that burning transport after the ambush carried him 12 miles through enemy territory, with a bullet in your own leg." The captain suddenly straightened and offered a perfect salute. "Sir, my father always said he owed his life to you, which means I owe my existence to you." John stood straighter, despite himself, military bearing returning automatically as he returned. The salute, Captain. Reynolds surveyed the scattered remains of Liberty, then glanced toward the yacht where music and laughter continued unabated. His jaw tightened. "What happened here, sir?" As John reluctantly explained the previous day's events, the captain's expression darkened. Without another word, he pulled out his phone and made a brief, intense call. "Sir, would you mind waiting here for approximately 30 minutes?" he asked, his tone now professionally controlled. Exactly 28 minutes later, the distant sound of engines broke the afternoon quiet around the bay's entrance. A formation appeared, 5 naval vessels of varying sizes, all flying full colors. They moved with precision into the harbor, positioning themselves in a perfect semicircle around the area. The yacht's music abruptly stopped as passengers gathered at the railings, confusion evident on their faces. From the lead vessel, a formal announcement boomed across the water. "Attention, harbor. This is a special military honor formation for Command Sergeant Major John Miller, Congressional Medal of Honor, recipient hero of Operation Desert Shield, and decorated veteran of 3 combat tours." The yacht owner emerged from his cabin, champagne glass still in hand, his expression shifting from annoyance to confusion. Captain Reynolds stood beside John on the dock, now joined by a full honor guard that had disembarked from the vessels. In a clear, carrying voice, he addressed the gathered onlookers. Command Sergeant Major Miller saved 37 American soldiers during his service, including my father. He was awarded our nation's highest military honor for valor above and beyond the call of duty. The captain turned directly toward the yacht. "Would the owner of that vessel please identify himself?" The yacht owner hesitated, then reluctantly raised his hand. Sister Captain Reynolds continued his voice, still beneath perfect courtesy. "You are currently occupying the berth of a national hero whose property you've destroyed. I suggest you prepare to explain your actions to the harbor authorities and potentially federal prosecutors." Immediately, the color drained from the yacht owner's face as uniformed personnel began boarding his vessel as the harbor police escorted the subdued yacht owner toward their waiting vehicle. John stood quietly uncomfortable with the attention captain. Reynolds approached with a formal envelope, "Sir, on behalf of the Veterans Affairs Secretary. I am authorized to present you with this." He handed John the document, "Full compensation for your lost property, expedited housing assistance, and reinstatement of all benefits." John accepted it with a slight nod, his eyes moist. Additionally, the captain continued, "My unit would be honored if you would accept this temporary accommodation while your situation is resolved." He gestured toward one of the naval vessels where sailors stood at attention, saluting as John prepared to board. Something unexpected happened. The dock workers, who had remained silent earlier, approached hesitantly. One by one, they removed their caps and offered apologies for their inaction. The harbor master, visibly shaken, extended his hand. "We failed you, sir," he said simply. "It won't happen again." Captain Reynolds addressed the gathered crowd. One final time, John stepped onto the vessel. Every sailor stood at attention, their eyes locked in solemn salute. The dock, once filled with indifference, now stood still. In reverence, civilians and workers, hands over their hearts, silently acknowledged the quiet strength that passed through them all. The world may forget heroes like John, but in this moment, the Bay will forever carry his legacy. Some heroes fight battles no one sees. They sacrifice in silence, ask for nothing, and yet give everything. It is in their shadows that our freedom breathes, in their sacrifices that our safety stands today. The world witnessed a man who fought, not just for his country, but for the dignity of every forgotten soul. The winds whispered across the water. The sun, as if in tribute, bathed the scene in golden light. John Miller, the quiet warrior, now sailed toward a horizon of new beginnings. But in the hearts of those who witnessed this moment, he will never fade, never be forgotten. His story will echo in the hearts of those who know the price of true valor.